Thank you for joining me on the program. I am Mary Kanu. Nigerian workers joined their counterparts worldwide to commemorate the 2023 International Workers' Day on May 1st. Relevant stakeholders, however, say it is a day of reflection on the plight of Nigerian workers. In the past 8 years, rise in inflation and unemployment, low wages, poor value of the naira, comatose health and education sectors, as well as high rate of insecurity have enveloped the country. In all, these workers are the worst hit. Many average Nigerians are currently having a downturn in their living standards and barely able to meet their basic needs. While disposable income of an average Nigerian has gone down drastically, prices of most commodities in the market have gone up by over 200%. Amid all of this, various unions have issued threats of strike action if the demands of salaries increase and favorable working conditions remain unmet. On the part of Nigerian employers, harsh economic realities in the country see them struggling to cope, but most of them downsizing. With the new team at the helm of affairs of the Nigerian Labour Congress, expectations are high that both the incoming government and the new leadership of the workers will tackle the plight of Nigerian workers to the best of their abilities. For formal deliberation on the plight of Nigerian workers at Dewale Oyerinde, Director General, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, joins me now. It's good to have you join me. Now, it's been a roller coaster ride for the average Nigerian workers struggling under the present economy. So what are your thoughts on the struggles and challenges faced by Nigerian workers, and how would you score, the federal government in terms of workers' welfare?
Well, we want to first also congratulate Nigerian workers for a successful May Day. As it is, we are all workers, as it were. So, congratulations to all of us. Now, the context of the workers' welfare cannot be taken out of the macroeconomic system in which workers operate, in which we all operate. And there are certain factors that drives production, certain factors that drive development, and certain factors that drive conversation around welfare. And if those factors are positive and largely positive, then the conversation around welfare will be much more productive, will be much more easier to discuss. But when those parameters in which or surrounding the operation of labor itself is not favorable, then it becomes very difficult for you to engage productively or have a constructive conversation around welfare. Fundamentally, as it is in the country, the economy is not doing very well. Organized businesses are not doing very well. There are so many macroeconomic issues that is not the fault of workers and not the fault of organized businesses. But somewhere along the line, our decisions at the level of macroeconomic decision makers, at that level, some of those decisions has not been favorable and has not worked well with key players in the economy, which now translates to the current challenge we have of inadequate welfare for workers, of the issue of the take-home pay not taking an average worker home, of the erosion and fast eroding nature of the purchasing power of an average worker. So it's been challenging to say. It's not been very rosy, but we just want to commend the resilience of Nigerian workers and also commend the resilience of employers, especially the private sector employers, for the role they continue to play in the context of employee welfare and national development.
You mentioned some issues bedeviling the country, and we know organized labor, across all platforms scored the administration of President Muhammad Buhari in terms of workers' welfare below par. Do you agree with this score?
Well, in the context of the economy itself, I say you can't. It's like you can't take one from one. The economy is not doing well. So one of the consequences of the economy not doing well is workers' welfare not being taken care of very well. So in that context, the workers' welfare has not, in the public sector, the workers' welfare has not really been top notch. You say below par, it is rightly so. Now, at the private sector is a bit different, but the conversation is not on the private sector now. But at the public sector level, I think it's government could and should have done much, much better in addressing the issue of welfare. A lot can still be done to improve the welfare package of workers across board in the public sector. In the private sector, as I mentioned, there are instrumentality of salary negotiation, there are instrumentality of salary increases. There are also schemes in the private sector like product sharing, like profit sharing schemes that employers in the private sector have put in place so that the welfare of workers in the private sector is consistently being put in the front burner. So government can learn quite a lot from the private sector in addressing the issue of workers' welfare in the public sector. Now, you cannot deal with the issue in the context of absolutes. That yes, the welfare has been taken care of 100%, but we can do much more in alleviating the challenges, the basic challenges that workers face in this environment. And progressively, we all move towards that utopian state of everything being okay, everything being fine, that we all look forward to. But absolutely, there's a lot more that government could do. There's a lot more that government could have done to address the concerns of organized labor.
Every now and then, associations resort to industrial actions which are constitutional and are not peculiar to Nigeria. But in your opinion, why has it proven difficult for pending issues to be trashed out despite numerous meetings between these various unions and the government?
Well, there will always be misalignment of interests. There will always be misinterpretation of agreements. There will always be misinterpretation of intent and intention, which is normal. Even in a family, there is misunderstanding. But what the defining factor would be two things. One, approaching the negotiation or conversation table in good faith. And two, having that consensus that, look, we are not adversaries. These issues that are coming up, we have to first exhaustively discuss it in good faith. If you take out the issue of good faith, then the rest is whatever you are discussing is not worth the paper or the pen in which you are writing this agreement. And those are the areas that government has not really lived up to expectation. Government keep negotiating agreements, they keep making promises that they can't keep, and there are principles to this negotiation. If you can't meet the expectation of your counterpart in the negotiation table, then you should be clear enough to say, look, we don't have the capacity to do this now. And even if at the point of negotiation, I have the capacity, but at the point of implementation, maybe few months down the line, the macroeconomic situation have changed, and I realized, look, I cannot meet the terms of the agreement that I signed 6 or 7 months ago. The most responsible thing to do is to call the other party back to the table and say, look, the negotiation that I had with you 6 months ago, by certain reasons beyond my control, I cannot meet those expectations again. Can we renegotiate? All these are allowable within the context of industrial relations. But when you decide not to honor the agreement, you decide not to give genuine reasons why you cannot honor the agreement, or you are coming to me that you cannot honor the agreement, but I can see the ostentatious life that you are living, that your aides are living. I can see the demonstration of opulence all around you. Then it calls for concern, and it gives me a strong reason why I should not agree. So for us, and we have discussed, we are already engaging our social partners, the organized labor, that whatever it is, we must all try as much as possible to respect the instrumentality of social dialogue that we have created for ourselves. Whatever it is, we must continue to dialogue, because if we close it up, we go on the strike, which is legal, as you mentioned, we close shop, we do this and that, on the long run, we'll still come back to the negotiation table to still negotiate and still discuss. So we urge organized labor, let's be a bit more, let's lean towards social dialogue. Let's maximize all the instrumentalities of dialogue that we have, while we continue to put pressure on government to respect the agreement that it has signed and continue to behave responsibly.
Well, we'll have to take a break now. Well, let's take a break, but when we return, the program will continue. Just stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We still have Adewale Oyerinde, Director General, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, speaking about the plight of Nigerian workers, as the country celebrated Workers' Day on May 1st. Now, before we went on that break, you were speaking about industrial actions, but another pressing issue is the government's inability to increase and even pay, in some cases, the 30,000 naira minimum wage, which is even less than what is paid in other countries. Now, is there a more effective way that workers can ensure that this demand is met?
Well, organized labor have done a bit in putting government in those states under pressure. There's no reason why the state government should not pay the 30,000. Before the 30,000 was set, it wasn't an afterthought. The Committee on the Setting of National Minimum Wage comprised employers, government, and then labor. NECA representing the employer body, NLCTUC, the workers, other stakeholders, and then government, led by the Ministry of Labor, with governors from the 6 geographical zones representing the interest of the Governors Forum. And they all agreed and signed up to the 30,000. So there's no reason why they will say they can't pay the 30,000. Now, this is our perspective, that those that are seeking to lead, especially at the state level, it is appalling that most states, all they do at the end of the month is to go to Abuja to collect a cap in hand, to collect allocation. We need to bring some level of creativity into governance. We need to bring some level of innovation into governance. Anybody, an averagely intelligent person, can be governor, go to Abuja, collect allocation, and come back to his state and sit down and share. That is not governance in the 21st century. Governors should be able to maximize the benefits of the resources in their state. Natural resources is everywhere in Nigeria. We must be able to be creative enough, innovative enough to come up with systems, structures that will aid businesses' growth in our states. You see, it is quite unfortunate that we put workers through this process. 30,000, even 30,000 4 years ago, if you convert it to dollars now, you see how little that amount has become, how the economic situation, inflation has eaten deep into that value of tax that we call. And it's unfortunate that you see state governors, the way they live, the retinue of aides they keep, and saying they cannot pay 30,000. It is quite worrisome. So, and those are this kind of situation that leaves an average person or leaves an average worker with no other option than first to reduce productivity. And once they reduce productivity, progressively they become disengaged. Once they are disengaged, then all you have is a divided workforce where He's at work, but predominantly his mind is not at work. And the action that Labour has taken to compel those governors to toe the line of responsibility and pay the 30,000 minimum wage, I think is by far and large justified by Labour. Now, next year, we'll be talking about another minimum wage. Then the fear is it a state governor or government that cannot pay 30,000? Will they be in a position to pay the reviewed minimum wage in 2024? So those are the concerns that we have. Those are the issues that we need to face, and we hope that those that have that will be sworn in May 29 as governors, we look back and become creative and innovative in the governance of their states.
All right, now, the issues seem enormous, but let's talk about brain drain. Right now, the country is currently recording a huge level of migration of, professionals in various sectors, especially in the medical field, to other countries for greener pastures. Now, lawmakers are proposing 5 years mandatory service by Nigerian trained medical doctors before they can travel abroad. Now, is this a right move by the federal government?
It's an absolute misplacement of priority. We have politicians going abroad for medical, and there is mobility of labor. There's free mobility of labor globally. So we are not in a police state. We are not in a war situation where you say young people cannot travel out because there's a war that the country is fighting, so they have to be conscripted to the military. It's a free world. Globally, labor is becoming mobile and mobile and mobile. So not only Nigerians are moving, you have Indians moving everywhere, you have Pakistans moving everywhere, Koreans moving everywhere. So it's a crass misplacement of priority for the NAS to think of stopping Nigerians from going abroad. And the greater risk is this. The greater risk is not even the Japa syndrome of Nigerians, of young persons going abroad. The greatest risk we face now is what we call corporate migration, corporate Japaism, where businesses are now relocating to other clients, relocating to Ghana, relocating to Benin, relocating to Togo, to start their production businesses, move their manufacturing to those areas, and use Nigeria just as a sales point, just as a sales hub because of the population that we have. And once that happens, you have offshored your jobs. As they leave, they go away with the job, they go away with the revenue that government will have made. So it is a more threatening situation for us, the corporate Japa syndrome that we are seeing now. And it's left for government to do much more than lip service, or pay much more than lip service to the issue of creating a favorable environment for organized businesses to thrive. Because it's in the survival of businesses that we can generate employment, that government can even make the necessary income, that we can deal with the issue of the social vices that is pervading the length and breadth of our country. We need to set our priorities very right.
The private sector also plays a significant role here, as we've seen cases of labor laws being flouted. So how do we ensure that Nigerian workers are well protected, both in the private and public sector?
One of the things we preach as the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association is responsible enterprises. That every business must be responsible, not only to the internal stakeholders, which is the workers, but they must also be responsible to regulatory authorities by paying their tax and by respecting the laws of the land. Now, you might have one or two employers that is not doing that. And what we have done significantly over time is to also partner with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. The Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment have a unit, a department called inspectorates, inspector officers. We have partnered with them so that as many employers as they see that is not living up to their regulatory compliance requirements, the ministry can deal with them. The ministry can sanction them. We have also had conversation or still having conversation with our partners, the NLC-TUC, that we also need to step up workers' education. If an employer is not paying pension, an employer is not contributing to the NSITL, employer is not contributing to the ITL, or the basic health and safety measures, the most basic of it, an employer is not keeping to those obligations, then the employee can escalate the issue to the Ministry of Labor. They should escalate those issues to the Ministry of Labor so that the ministry can take appropriate action against such employer. That is how progressively we'll be dealing with the issue of breaking of laws, not compliance with statutory rules. It is a responsibility that not only the employer has it, but everybody must play their role so that we have a decent environment for Nigerian workers to work.
Well, all right now, Adewale Oyerinde, Director General, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, thank you very much for your time and your contribution.
Thank you.
Well, that's our program this week. Thank you for staying with us. I am Mary Kanu. Bye for now.